I don't know where a person like that is formed. What do we know about like DeAngelo's upbringing? Not that it matters. There's no excuse. One thing, real quick.
No, I know he was sexually assaulted by an older relative and was beat up for like most of his.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. What a shock. He was beat up and sexually assaulted.
He grew up in a military base. He was in the military for a little while.
Yeah.
And then he went to high school in Sacramento, kind of near where the East Area rapes attacks took place. And it's weird he keeps coming back to that area of that's where he's committing his most crimes. That's like where he went to high school. After he's retired, he moves back there, and this might be a weird analogy, but it's almost just like a high school football player reliving his highlights is kind of how I feel like.
I know what you're saying.
It's a weird analogy to make.
I know. I get where you're going with that. Like, to me, I was gonna go a different way, which is just like maybe those are his trauma. Maybe that's
right.
the area that he associates with his trauma, and he's gonna act out and seek revenge against that area.
But also,
albeit in a wildly, wildly inappropriate, totally missing the fucking point.
Yeah.
Which is why that documentary I think we watched together, "Call Me Lucky," with Barry Crimmins.
I didn't watch Call Me Lucky.
Well, it's really he was a comedian, but he was sexually assaulted as a child, and it's just he talks about how he went the other way with it, where he became a sexual assault, an abuse survivor advocate,
right,
and did all these things and went after AOL in the 90s because they were circulating child porn. He just went the fucking full 180 on it, which is a beautiful thing.
Well, it's that. I mean, if you can even call what happened to Joseph DeAngelo when he was a kid as the same thing happened to him that happened to someone else, and you decided to take that horrible thing that happened to you and then put it onto other people, and someone else decides, I'm going to take this horrible thing that happened to me and make sure it never happens to anybody else.
Right. Which is, that's the interesting thing about what are the other factors that leads a person, because obviously a terrible thing could happen to someone. It doesn't justify them repeating that or doing anything in that nature.
I don't know. Maybe, it might just comes down to if you give a shit about other people or not. If you don't give a shit about other people, then maybe the idea of wanting to make sure what happened to you doesn't happen to anybody else.
Right.
That doesn't even cross your mind.
I mean, because in the Richard Ramirez documentary, they talk about his father, to punish him, would hang him on a cross overnight.
Which I should bring up. I'll Be Gone in the Dark, the book, and then I'll Be Gone, the HBO documentary. But also, what covers kind of a lot of the same things is Night Stalker on Netflix, which is about Richard Ramirez, who, while the Golden State Killer was the original Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez had that name first.
Correct.
Yeah.
It feels futile to almost be like, what could cause someone to rape 50 people and murder 13 people? Because you want to throw up your hand and go, there's obviously nothing you could clearly you can't justify anything. But you know what? Is it a worthless pursuit, or is it important?
I think it's important.
Right. No, I do too, because otherwise, what are you essentially, and this is always the thing where it's I'll use another example, racism, where you're talking about look, you can't change people, or people are going to be racist. And yes, that is true, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying you can't change people. I think you can. Are people going to be racist? Yes. Are people going to be, killers? Yes. I mean, at least that's what history has shown us to this point, but you can't just throw up your hands, because then you're not working on the problem, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It seems silly for us to kind of sit here and be like, what would cause someone to do that, when it's so outrageous.
So one of you do see like moments in Joseph DeAngelo's life that kind of make him go more violent. Like at the end
yes.
of his East Area rapist, spree, he's arrested for shoplifting. He gets into a fight with his commanding officer.
Right.
He stalks his commanding officer's house for a while, and he's fired from the police department. He can't be a cop anymore, and like people close to Joseph DeAngelo say like that's all he ever wanted to be, was a police officer. And you see after that happens, and also he has to leave Sacramento, which is this area that he's been drawn to, and he has to go down to Goleta, which is right outside of Los Angeles. Then his crimes become really violent.
Yes.
And then it's not a, something went wrong and he killed the person and he didn't mean to. Then it's this person is tied up. They are no threat to me. I'm not in any, and he just kills them anyway.
Right.
And I do believe the reason why he went from tying up husband and wife and raping to he's a serial killer is because now he can't be a police officer anymore and he's lashing out.
Well, they talk about also these like triggering moments in his life where, it's, I think, either in the book or the documentary, I can't recall, they talk about his children being born lined up with...
Yeah, well, in the book, they didn't know it was Joseph James DeAngelo.
Right.
That was only in the documentary. But yes, so in 81, his first kid is born, and he doesn't kill again until 86, which he kills... It was like 2 months after
81 was his last murder, right? His spree was from like 76 to 81 and then 86, right?
He's 76 to 79. He's the East Area rapist.
Well, 74 to 76 by
or
Celia
73 to 76 Visalia Ransacker. 77 to 79, he's the East Area rapist, and then like 80 to 81, he's the original Night Stalker.
Right.
His first child is born, and he stops killing.
Right.
And then he doesn't kill again until his family leaves him in 1986. And then 2 months after his family leaves him, he murders his last victim.
He must have retained some custody of his daughters, though, right?
I don't know.
Because there's a phone... To me, what's interesting is also the phone calls that he would make. Now, obviously, the phone calls he made during his time in his prime, if you want to call it, he made phone calls to the police and to his victims.
Right.
But he made phone calls in later years. He made a phone call in 1991.
Yeah, and then his last phone call was in 2001.
Which is...
After they connected that the original Night Stalker and the East Area rapist were the same person in 2001, he... one of his original victims. It was like one of his first victims. Obviously, they don't publish the woman's name.
Can you imagine like he's sitting there for all these years and then he picks up a phone call and he's like, "Let me go back into that fucking mode."
I think part of it was that the fact that he wanted to remain a part of these people's lives was that he wanted to ruin their lives. He wanted them to not be able to sleep for the rest of their lives. He wanted them constantly to be thinking of them. That's why when he was burglarizing the houses, he didn't take objects that were the most valuable. He took sentimental objects because he wanted people to remember them. Yeah. He wanted people to say, "Oh, where's the watch my grandfather gave me? Oh, right, that horrible thing that happened to me." And that's why
How could he be that sick? How could he be that sick? I don't even fucking understand that.